So you want to hear a story? Today on the Heaven's Metal podcast, I'm going to tell a couple stories. Alright, today it's Sacred Warrior Day on the Heaven's Metal podcast. The first time I saw Sacred Warrior was at Cornerstone. I believe it was 1990, which was, I don't know, about my third or fourth Cornerstone. I went 87, 88, 89, 90. It's my fourth Cornerstone. And for an encore, they did Holy, Holy, Holy. And the very end, when they hit the chorus for the last time, they did it a cappella. And they had these body lights kind of shining behind them, straight up behind them, giving them big silhouettes. And it was just awesome. It was majestic. It was very worshipful. It was truly worshipful volume. And that was back in the days when Cornerstone was held in Grace Lake, Illinois. It was in kind of a metal building. And it was loud and it was packed and it was hot. Hot summer night. The other Sacred Warrior story is the Wicked Generation, their third album. The record company, Intense/Frontline Records, they flew me and Brian Quincy Newcomb and Mike Delaney and maybe a couple other journalists. Yeah, Bruce Brown from CCM Magazine and maybe one or two others, maybe music buyers or radio folks. They flew us up to Chicago. They took us out to an awesome dinner, put us up at a nice hotel in downtown Chicago, treated us right, took us to the studio where Sacred Warrior was mixing their Wicked Generation album. The band got to tell us their concept and their story behind the album. It was kind of a concept album, kind of followed a girl around. The story kind of centered around a theme about her. And they played us tracks in the studio. And it was great to hang out with the band, listen to tracks in the loud, great studio monitoring system. And then the record company took us out to a Chicago White Sox game. It was the very last game at Comiskey Park ever in Chicago. So we rode the L, which is the elevated train, from downtown Chicago out to Comiskey Park and back. Some of the journalists actually went to the Soldier Field and saw the Bears play the Rams in a preseason game. I was kind of jealous of that. But it was awesome to see the White Sox play their last home game in their historic stadium. And then another great restaurant experience. And it was just a great time. And got to hang out with some peers in the music industry, which was fun. And when it was all said and done, I came back, had a great trip, and the next issue of Heaven's Metal came out. And there was a review of Wicked Generation in that issue. But there wasn't an article about one of our major bands that the record company had actually flown me to Chicago to kind of help facilitate a story. And to be honest, I was just so naive. I didn't really know how it worked, that sometimes you got perks like that to enhance your story, enhance your coverage, or to really boost or motivate you to cover that band. But you know what? I was so naive and just enjoying the experience. Nobody ever came up to me, put their arm around me and said, "So, do you want to interview the band right while you're here? What kind of help do you need to write your story? Do you want to take some special photos?" Nobody had a conversation with me about that. So a feature article on the band just kind of slipped my mind. And I really was a fan of Sacred Warrior. That album was actually my least favorite of their albums. I would go Obsessions, number 1, Rebellion, the first album, number 2, Master's Command 3, and Wicked Generation's the fourth favorite album. But anyway, years passed, and I realized that, and I just kind of chuckled at myself how naive I was to not realize that they were kind of hoping I would write a favorable article on the band in exchange for that trip. And I asked one of the record company guys about it. "Hey, did that ever come up that I didn't do an article?" And he was like, "Yes, it did. It came up in a meeting. And one of us, it might have been my friend who was telling me this response, grabbed the issue and said, 'Okay, let's open up this issue. Here's an article on a band, probably Ransom, our band. Flip the pages. Here's another article. Who's this band? That's our band. Flip the pages. Our band, our band, our band. Turn to the album reviews. Our band, our band, our band, our band.'" And the point was kind of taken and given that, you know what, Heaven's Metal gives this record label a ton of coverage. So to make a fuss or to even call Doug up and complain is really, there's not much point in doing it because, I definitely treated their record label right. They were a major player in the Christian metal scene and hard rock scene, and they got good coverage because they deserved it. They put out some quality stuff. But that's just kind of a funny story about what a goober, naive guy I was not to realize that I was being schmoozed for a reason. And so there you have it. Now join the discussion. Let's talk about the Wicked Generation album. Let's talk about Sacred Warrior. Let's talk about record labels. Let's talk about schmoozing. Till next time.